Hello and welcome to SDSU Live, a live production of SDSU News Center. I'm your host, Lorena Nava-Ruggiero, and today I'm speaking with Congressman Bob Filner about the 21st Century G.I. Bill and his Veterans Town Hall that he just held here on campus. Congressman Filner, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. You got to tell people I'm not only a congressman now, but I was a former faculty member in the history department at San Diego State.
Definitely.
So it's great to be back.
We love having you back. Now, speaking of your Veterans Town Hall, what did you just discuss this morning?
You know, first it was great to have it hosted by San Diego State. And the president, Dr. Weber, spent a lot of time outlining what services San Diego State is providing veterans. It was a great presentation. But we have passed a really important new benefit for veterans who have served our country since 9/11. We call it the post 9/11 GI Bill. And it pays the full cost of college education at any public universities, plus significant contributions toward private universities. It covers people who previously were not covered, like National Guard and reserve units who are doing half of the fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the benefit, if the soldier does not want to use that benefit, he or she can pass it on to a spouse or children. So that makes it an even better benefit than it has been in the past.
Now, the 21st Century GI Bill is different from the one we used to have, the Montgomery GI Bill,
Right.
which was just after World War II. Can you explain some of the differences and how much more does this
Well, the
provide?
Montgomery Bill is the most recent GI Bill before. We were trying to replicate, actually, the effect of students on the original GI Bill, which is 1944.
Okay.
When our young men, including my father, came out of World War II, we thought that they should have a chance for education and also buying a home. And the GI Bill really brought 8 million veterans into the middle class because it doubled the university enrollment at the time and gave kids who never would have had a chance to college the opportunity. What we try to do is replicate that, because the cost of college has obviously gone up. The needs of students for books and for living expenses. Many have children. How do you take care of all that? The fact that, as I said earlier, our National Guard and Reserve are involved in a way they never have been involved before. All that went into the new GI Bill. So it's far more encompassing in the payments that it gives. It brings in new people for eligibility, takes into account the new lifestyle that our GIs may likely to have, and just as I said, brings in a whole lot of people now who have served our nation will now have the chance to go to college.
Now, how were you involved in helping getting the new 21st Century GI Bill passed?
Well, as chairman of the Veterans Committee in the Congress, I helped to write this bill and to get it passed through the way we work in Congress. We have committee hearings on it, and so the Senate and the House did that, and then we have to have it sent to what we call the floor of the House or Senate, and it's passed. And I was one of the chief writers and sponsors of the bill, and we're pretty proud of the achievement we had. There's some problems with it as we see how it's working out, but by and large, it's going to be a great benefit, and we'll fix things as they are needed.
Mm-hmm. Now, why do you think it's so important to have this new bill introduced, especially after 9/11?
Well, again, because of the volunteer force, we wanted to say to people who volunteered that we're going to give you additional benefits for serving the nation. And many of the volunteers are from rural or poorer families, for example. Many of them will be the first ones in their families to ever go to college. And it's important to give them that opportunity. And places like San Diego State have taken their obligations to welcome the veterans. This is a real problem. When you come back from a searing experience like war, you don't feel really part of the student body that you may be older or not, but they have not had these experiences, and you feel different. And unless you have a way to deal with your fellow veterans and sort of ease into the new environment, which San Diego State is doing through a veterans center that it has, and all kinds of interdepartmental things to improve the bureaucratic response to stuff. What San Diego State is doing is trying to prevent the isolation of veterans, which would probably be the biggest cause of them dropping out. Again, combat experience is felt to be so different and so utterly unexplainable to most people that they tend to be aloof of anybody who did not have that experience until they learn they have to learn really to reintegrate into the society. But unless you have special provisions and understanding of their predicament, you won't do it. And I know San Diego State and its Troops to College program, is that what we call it?
That is what we call it. That's what the governor wants us to call it as well.
I mean, that is the root thing. How do you make the veteran feel comfortable and wanted rather than just an isolated figure? And you have to, make sure that they don't have to go through all the bureaucracy that is generally required, and that they meet people who maybe have shared their experiences and they have a place to congregate and feel like they're a part of a group as opposed to just singled out alone on campus.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I know our Veteran Center here on campus, as well as our Student Veterans Organization, really help to kind of provide the camaraderie that folks that come back from combat need, as well as help get them more involved on the wider campus scale. And so it's good that we have those kinds of programs as part of our Troops to College. Now, as far as your work at the federal level, seeing it implemented in action, how does that feel when you've worked so long on sponsoring this bill and actually seeing it come to fruition? Well,
it's a great feeling, and when the kids show up at college, it'll be even greater. I hope I'm here when we can welcome them. That is, and by the way, San Diego State is one of the first campuses to where a veterans organization was formed. You have some great leadership here, and the model has spread to other places. San Diego State has taken a real lead, and President Weber has been in contact with me with problems that he has seen as this bill is implemented. So he'll be responsible helping to fix all this stuff too. But when kids came back from Vietnam, they weren't exactly welcomed on campus. I mean, it was a real mistake that we made as a society, not only on campus but in other places. And we're determined not to allow that mistake to happen again. So. San Diego State is trying to have a welcoming environment, understanding some of the issues that the veterans may have, to keep them isolated and try to welcome them into the mainstream of campus life.
Yeah, and I've heard that as well on campus, that the acceptance is so much more different now. Yeah. It's if you're upset about the war, don't be mad at the warrior kind of a mentality, which I think is a good way to look at it. Now, as far as, San Diego obviously is a huge military town. In terms of your constituency, how do you think this new GI Bill can help those folks as well?
Well, as you said, San Diego is probably the number one in the nation in terms of the numbers of both active duty and veterans. So there's going to be a big market here for this bill, and especially since they can transfer it. If they're in active duty right now, on one of the carriers, for example, they can choose to transfer the benefits to their children. So the more people know about this, the more they'll use it. So, but we're going to see San Diego will probably service the more veterans than any other institution, maybe in the country. But we'll see the problems here first too. So it gives me a chance to preview what's going to happen, so we can fix things on a nationwide scale.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you seen any issues yet, or is it kind of just bits and pieces here and there?
No, for example,
problems?
The modern veteran is more likely to want to take courses on the computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
With distance
online learning, yeah.
Right, and because they're used to that, they do it in active duty now, and it's comfortable for them. The bill did not, for some reason, provide living expenses for those who were participating in distance learning. We've got to fix that. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of thing that has come up. And California has a strange also little blip. In the Constitution of California, the public universities cannot charge tuition. So they cannot use the word tuition in anything they charge their students. They have to charge fees. Mm-hmm. But the bill says tuition. So we're going to have to fix that, because the way California comes out, tuition is zero, because we're not allowed to charge tuition here. And that creates certain problems, which we have to fix. But by and large, I think it's going to be a great benefit. More than 500,000 veterans will use it this year and have a chance to succeed in the civilian world also.
Now, ultimately, what do you hope veterans get out of this? I know the education, but really providing education is a first step.
Oh, sure. They got to not only get that education, which is the the prerequisite to entering our society, really. If you don't have a college education, you're probably not going to make a good salary and have, being able to afford all the things that Americans want to do. But I think their college experience allows them to sort of reintegrate into society in a less, let's say, drastic fashion. I mean, the campus life is a little bit removed from the real world, mm-hmm. and that's good for people coming back from combat. They have to have a chance to readjust in a longer time period. So I think college life will be good for them, especially at a place like San Diego State, where they're welcoming them from the president on down. We're going to welcome our veterans here, and that's a great thing that state is doing.
Yeah, it is pretty nice, we like to think. Now, as far as, the future, I mean, you mentioned that there are things that are going to be need to fix. Do you see this bill being revisioned in a certain time frame or additional things being added to it? Or is it, like you said, just a work in progress at this point?
We'll do a fix-it bill in the fall after the first class is starting attending college, and we know where all the bugs are. And we'll fix it in time for the second class. Mm-hmm.
And as far as the future goes, I don't know if there's any other things that you want to touch on in terms of this topic. I know that we need to finish up pretty quickly here, but I do want to give you a chance to have a last word on this.
Well, I mean, the education benefits that we're providing here are really important. But we also, what we learned in the Vietnam experience, the mental health of our veterans, especially after combat, is something that is very difficult to get at. There's a lot of stigma attached to it. There's a lot of self-denial. And we're going to be having to work with San Diego State on dealing with some of these sort of mental health issues it's going to be part of their educational needs. Mm-hmm. To be able to talk about combat and they may have killed somebody in a way that leads them nightmares about that, for example, or had a comrade killed and have real guilt problems about that. So as we have experience with them going to college, I think we're going to have to deal with some of the mental health issues to make sure they're successful.
Well, all good things, and thank you, Congressman Filner, for joining me today. I do appreciate your time. And again, you've been watching SDSU Live, a live production of SDSU News Center. Thanks so much for clicking in, and we hope you watch again soon.